Directed by Jennifer Kent, known for previously directing The Babadook, today we'll be taking a look at a hard-hitting historical movie that asks one question and one question only. What's up with the English? Taking place in 1825, The Nightingale is a movie that highlights the unfortunate side effects of the British meeting other cultures. A movie that also features some of the worst criminals ever put to the screen. Australians. Taking place at the beginning of the Black War, also known as the Tasmanian War, a period of extreme violence between the British colonists and the indigenous population of Tasmania, who would dare to be a little bit upset about having their land stolen, their men killed, and their women horrifically abused. The movie is set during a time where tensions were extremely high and were only about to get worse due to the English getting all weird about seeing someone with black skin. This would unfortunately nearly lead to the near extinction of the indigenous Tasmanian people due to their resistance to British expansion. And during this time, this movie follows an Irish convict named Claire, who's been forcefully relocated to Tasmania in order to work off her sentence for the rather serious crime of being Irish. She and many other Irish prisoners work for a detachment of the British Army in one of their remote outposts. The unit is run by a Lieutenant Hawkins, who is currently being visited by a Captain Goodwin in hopes of receiving a promotion in order to go up the ranks and to be able to move away from this outpost. Claire is called a Nightingale by Hawkins due to her ability to sing, and is often made to sing in front of all the men. So, one night she sings for them and the visiting captain, which gives him a chance to get a taste for the type of men that Hawkins is currently leading, which is rude, drunk, and disobedient, with little to no care that a captain is currently among them. Which is a pretty good summary of the English, to be honest. After the show, Hawkins brings Claire into his office and makes her sing him his own private show. Hawkins is what we like to call in the industry a sex pest, a Harvey Weinsteiner if you would. He apparently thinks that he can do whatever he wants to a woman due to being a lieutenant and also being a man in the early 1800s. Claire has served her time and should be allowed to sign off from Hawkins in order to be a free woman. But there's a bit of a problem. Hawkins is a little bit of a r***er and therefore a bad man. He doesn't want to sign Claire off despite her legally being entitled to it because he wants to keep her for himself. So after telling her to sit on his lap like a perverted little Santa Claus, he slaps her across the face for daring to be a woman with her own thoughts and opinions, before mercilessly violating her after she tries to leave the room. With the British being no stranger to war crimes, sex crimes were apparently something they were quite familiar with too, as then Hawkins proceeds to go about his daily life as if all of those horrific events that literally just happened, literally didn't happen. Cara goes home to her husband Aidan and infant daughter Bridget, where Aidan notices bruising around her neck. There was very little that they could actually do about this, because unfortunately for them, they were Irish, and the English were, well, English. Suffice to say, the English weren't exactly too keen on the potato race, and they had a long history of being subjected to their oppression and rule. Now that I mention it, kind of like anyone who's had the misfortune of meeting the English. The next day, Aidan attempts to confront Hawkins about having his wife granted her freedom, but is immediately turned away due to Hawkins not being a very nice man. This apparently gets Aidan so engaged in his favourite Irish pastime of getting drunk, that he goes to pay Hawkins a visit later that night in a tavern, where Hawkins tells Aidan that Claire is his property. Quite understandably not very happy about this, considering that Claire is actually his property, he then proceeds to punch Lieutenant Hawkins directly in his stupid little punchable face. And after a few punches back and forth and a headbutt to the ground, Hawkins realizes that the captain has been watching this entire time. The captain, who then tells him that he cannot recommend him for a promotion due to his conduct and the conduct of his unruly, constantly drunk men. Something which causes Hawkins to become somewhat irate due to him actually being a little baby boy man-child. He defies the captain and tells him that he's going to travel through dangerous territory himself to directly appeal this to the major and apply for the position in person. After the captain basically says, "Good luck with that." Having his feelings hurt because he's just genuinely bad at his job, he decides to go pay Aidan a visit to have a nice friendly chat about the incident with his buddies Ruse and Jago. And by have a nice friendly chat about the incident, I mean punch him in the face and horrifically violate his wife right in front of him. Hawkins beats Claire as she attempts to resist, and he stares Aidan directly in the face as he proceeds to horrifically abuse her. All the while, their infant child is screaming in the background. Hawkins then takes Aidan's musket and shoots him through the neck as Claire watches on in horror, and despite Ruse also looking on in horror, he then proceeds to brutally violate her too. Hawkins then begins screaming at Jago to make the baby stop crying, resulting in him attempting some infant chiropractic, but not being very good at it. After he slams it against the wall, Realizing that they need to finish what they've started, forgetting the most efficient way to kill someone with a musket, they then hit her over the head with it and leave her be. And despite war crimes being something of a hobby to the British Army at this period of time, they somehow fail to kill this unarmed civilian, resulting in her waking up the next day to unfortunately realize that this wasn't some sort of horrific nightmare and that Bridget and Aidan are lying dead on the floor. Claire attempts to report the crime to the officials, but no one will listen to her on account of her being Irish and also a woman. Armed with nothing but their racism, a few guns and a small child, Hawkins, Ruse and Jago set off into the woods with the help of a few prisoners to transport supplies, because God forbid they'd have to do any actual work themselves. Knowing that justice will never meet these men in any official capacity, Claire decides that they should meet it unofficially, by going after them herself with the help of an indigenous Tasmanian guide named Billy, also known as Blackbird. In order to get him to agree, she's told him that she's looking for her husband and will pay him handsomely if he's able to get her there through the harsh wilderness, inhabited by all kinds of horrors native to Australia, like Australians. The only problem with this is that Claire is a white person in the 1800s and doesn't trust Billy on account of his melanation, so constantly has a gun pointed at him. Almost immediately, they pass a home burning with a mother, a child and a baby outside before coming across the husband, who proceeds to shoot at Billy due to being jump scared by the sight of a black man. He tells Claire that the natives set fire to their home and that they would have killed his family too if he hadn't come back in time and hung them from a tree. The constant death that seems to rear its funny looking head every time the English show up in history has caused tensions to be extremely high and people's perceptions of who they deem other to be somewhat negative. And because of this, she's constantly referring to Billy as boy and reminding him that she did indeed go to primary school to learn her colours by calling him black, while repeatedly threatening to kill him for the unfortunate timing of being alive at the same time as a white person. This here is a reference to the fact that they're all a little bit racist, disliking and distrusting Billy being somewhat antithetical to her whole mission right now, especially considering that she has far more reason to distrust the white man than this random person who's willingly agreed to help her. The horrors of what happened to her that night are never far behind her. She spends all day marching forward with nothing but anger, but come nighttime, every time she allows to slow herself down and let herself think, her mind becomes consumed by what those men did to her, as closing her eyes is accompanied by the horrified screams of her infant daughter. But it turns out that's just the noise Australia makes. After a night of sleeping in the bush, and not the fun kind, Claire and Billy find themselves walking directly into a group of prisoners who are serving a double sentence. Not only are they prisoners, but they're also in Australia. Billy hides because white people get all jumpy when they see a black bloke, and the two guards proposition Claire for some of the old prostitution. And considering that's not exactly a good method of flirting, Claire proceeds to gallop past them on her horse as they try to chase after her. While these men are busy thinking they can outrun a horse, meanwhile Hawkins and his group have been making some distance through the jungle when suddenly Ruse hears a Tasmanian woman talking to her child. The toddler, quite understandably, starts crying at the sight of a white boy before Ruse drags her back to Hawkins, where he proceeds to ask if he can have her. With Ruse seemingly mixing up reality with Pokemon, Hawkins asks what about the rest of the group, where Ruse proceeds to lie and say that he found her surrounded by the bodies of her people, when in fact he did not find her surrounded by the bodies of her people. So, with Hawkins deeming it safe, he decides that they can keep this woman for their own sick, twisted pleasure and has her tied to the cart because he likes his women how he likes his coffee. Terrified, Claire and Billy make it to a river, but Billy says that it's too high to cross, and Claire, reminding the viewers that she is in fact a female, decides that she knows best and proceeds to walk directly into the water. Water that almost immediately begins carrying her away to almost near certain death, if not for Billy safely getting the horse across and then jumping back in to risk his own life to save the silly lady who's been nothing but horrible to him. Maybe he just likes mean women. Heading into the jungle, completely unprepared, they found themselves with no food. So coming across a shack in the wilderness, they decide to live up to their name as Australians and start stealing things. It doesn't exactly go to plan, as Claire makes for an absolutely terrible lookout, resulting in the occupant of the house walking back into his home, where he proceeds to take out all of his hatred and anger on a bag of flour. After taking off running, that evening, Billy explains to Claire why he hates the English so much. He tells her that he was once served a Greggs sausage roll so hot that it left him with third-degree burns, and also a bunch of white people killed all the males in his family, and after that, they chained him up and beat him in an attempt to make him more civilized. To add further insult to injury, Hawkins would then use Billy to track down other Tasmanian natives, where he would then shoot them, and Claire, being Irish, has many of her own reasons to hate the English too, something that Billy doesn't understand at first, but starts to realize after initially thinking that she was also English, as just like him, she was ripped away from her homeland and her entire family killed right in front of her simply because the English felt like it. If you stop to think about it, the Irish are just white black people. We see why Hawkins was happy enough to take the woman with them, as he viciously and horrifically assaults her, followed by him returning to camp, where Ruse is eager to get some sloppy seconds on account of being a ginger. But eventually, the woman's people are able to track her down, and the next day, the group are attacked, as one of the prisoners who were forced to transport the goods takes a spear through the neck, while Jago takes one to the leg. Attempting to de-escalate this already tense situation, Hawkins then proceeds to shoot the woman in her back in front of her people for literally no reason, before running off into the woods again, except this time being followed by a group of angry people in speedos armed with sharp sticks. Jago ends up getting split up from the rest of the group, with Hawkins showing absolutely zero interest in going back to help him, which results in Billy and Claire discovering his tracks. And after pursuing the person who gonged her baby's brains against the wall, he sees her. Eventually Claire manages to catch up to him, and immediately shoots him in his only good leg. While she's taking the time to reload the rifle before the next shot, he's profusely apologizing for her, saying that he didn't mean to do what he did after he went and did what he did. But her gun misfires. A fight then breaks out between an Irish woman and a cripple, followed by her taking his knife and driving it into his stomach. Thinking that his chest could use some extra ventilation holes, she proceeds to add way too much ventilation to it before picking up the musket and using the butt of it to repeatedly make contact with his skull. A horrified and disgusted Billy witnessed Claire bash the brains of a twink in, so decides to turn around and walk away after being told that she wanted help finding her husband. She begs him to stay, with him eventually asking her what those men did to make Claire act like that. And despite at first being horrified and wanting absolutely nothing to do with this crazy white girl shenanigans, eventually Billy realizes what these men had done to her, which changes his attitude completely as he decides to carry on helping. And after leaving that guy to have a nap in the woods, they come across the abandoned carriage where Hawkins and his men were ambushed, before confusingly discovering that they've decided to walk up into a mountain, as Hawkins' guide Charlie seems to have taken them there. Charlie is senile, and he's taking them on a little adventure. After stopping for the night, Claire takes a look over a cliff ledge and lets her intrusive thoughts win as she decides to let her body go completely limp until her spinal column makes direct impact with a tree. Billy realizes that he needs to do something about this woman as she's suffering from tig-ol biddies and has no baby to empty them because the pain is becoming excruciating. Yeah, sure lady, try having sperm cramps. Billy creates a paste for her to rub on herself and performs some kind of smoke ceremony to make her boobies feel better. I'm not sure that's the type of smoke she should be inhaling to feel better though. After leading Hawkins and his group up a treacherous mountain simply for the fun of it, Charlie eventually reveals to them that he actually has no intention of taking him where he wants to go and says that he's going to just leave them there. After stopping to call Hawkins an England bastard, Ruse decides to shoot him through the chest. Shooting and killing, their only way out of there. Ruse, the ultimate trifecta. Racist, prejudiced, and also incompetent. As time has gone on, Claire has gone from disliking and distrusting Billy simply because the colour of his skin, to realising that he's actually a decent human being who's just been handed a really unfortunate set of circumstances in life, and goes from sleeping away from him at night, constantly scared that he's going to attack her, to moving her bedroll next to him so she can feel safe while sleeping at his side. And after that, the next morning they then discover Charlie's body, something which greatly upsets Billy due to being close with Charlie after losing all of the males in his family. Charlie wasn't his blood, but he referred to the man as his uncle, so now Billy wants Hawkins dead for killing his fake uncle man. Following their trail, Billy and Claire eventually spot Hawkins and his group in the distance and get in place to conduct an ambush. But after getting into the perfect position to take Hawkins out, Claire proceeds to not do that and stands there frozen in place after exposing her position, which gives Hawkins the opportunity to raise his weapon and fire it at her, narrowly grazing her arm. And after coming face to face with her reason for being out here, she starts to panic and wants all of this to end. But Billy grabs hold of her and calms her down and reassures her that he's going to get her out safely. But after going back for the horse so they can leave, he's then caught by Hawkins, who decides to use him as their new guide. And eventually, Billy manages to take them to a road, and a little boy named Eddie that Hawkins has been slowly bonding with over the trip is then tasked with shooting and killing Billy. But not wanting to be executed by a little midget, Billy runs off into the trees and narrowly narrowly manages to avoid the little ankle biter. This causes the literal child to become extremely upset and begin profusely crying, with Hawkins telling him that he's going to leave him to rot out here. Eddie, not exactly liking the idea of being left out in the woods all by himself, begins hysterically begging Hawkins to please take him back with him, followed by Hawkins turning around and shooting him dead because he kept talking about something known as a skibbity toilet. Claire too eventually makes it to a road where she's given a ride by a passing carriage, literally 2 seconds after being thrown from the passing carriage, where she now has a nice, easy, somewhat comfortable ride back to civilization. But that is until she sees Billy emerging from the trees in front of her, and remembering bros before hoes, decides to jump from the back of her free ride and run directly towards him, followed by her beginning to cry after making it to him, due to that being the effect that black people have on her. And rather conveniently for them, they pass a home where they're able to find themselves another musket, where rather inconveniently for the occupants, they've been butchered in their sleep. Something that would come as quite a blessing in disguise, not just because of Claire's hatred for random couples, but because they'd end up crossing paths with a group of slavers. Claire pretends to be holding Billy up at gunpoint as to not arouse suspicion, but as the chained men proceed to talk to Billy, they're all immediately executed on the spot, as their killers laugh and joke about what they've just done, with one of them proceeding to behead one of the corpses to keep his skull as a trophy. You know, like civilized people. After some more walking, they encounter an elderly couple who offers to ride them the rest of the way into town, and after making it there, Billy hides and watches as he sees Hawkins talking to some guy in a fancy hat about how he traversed his way through the wilderness without the help of a native. After telling Claire, she follows him into a pub filled with important higher-ranking members of the military and proceeds to expose him for being a murdering Lester the Molester in front of everybody inside. After walking into the room, saying he's a nonce and walking out, Claire and Billy then decide to ride back off into the woods because I guess they're done now. After falling asleep and holding Billy's hand, Claire wakes up in the night to find him gone. Billy stayed up and rubbed Greek yogurt all over his body. He's been preparing for something. After heading back into town in the dead of night, Claire finds him walking into a building and follows him as he opens Hawkins' door, as there's a woman on top of him who appears to have mistaken him for a motorcycle. Billy throws a spear into his chest, killing him with his knob out, followed by him leaving the room and immediately being shot by Ruse. But powered by nothing more than hatred for gingers and Greek yogurt on his body, Billy takes the shot to the gut, but keeps on going and pushes another spear into Ruse's neck, killing him too. And finally, the 2 men and the ginger have been killed. Making their escape on horseback, Claire and Billy follow the river until making it to the ocean, as Billy begins to sing and dance while his guts slowly pollute the wildlife, before sitting down to admire the sunrise with Claire, thanks to their shared bond and connection through their united hatred for the English people. So before we finish up, I'd like to just give a big shout out and a massive thank you to all of the YouTube members and patrons, the people who continue to support the channel every month. If you're interested in becoming a YouTube member or a patron yourself, not only are you just generally being a great help, but you also get access to a few little perks, like being able to join the private Discord server, where you then get links to all uncensored versions of videos going forward. So starting off with this week's new YouTube signups, a massive thank you to Mano Ferraro, Celogram, Nikki Shojan, Joshua Hansen, Nanokai, Morven Can, Alu, CR, Herbivore the Carnivore, Flooney, Exyfe, Sprinky, Lumal LP, The Francisco, Mickey Tang, Janus, Ian Berger, Private Tekken, Tuffy, Old Blue Collar, Samarth Ryan Edward, Thanos Gaming 145, Zane Monroe, Javi Lozado, Ofri Ranche, Resident Alligator, Avarice Art, Preston Lizen B, Jordan Parker, Nathan Geiger, Gangaro Horror, Makudez, Scary Jim, Dylan Guerin, Mr. 010396, Tony J. Dietz, Rohan Nayak, WinRAR 64-bit download, Brain Damage, Reggie Davis Wears Lingerie, Mugmonster Gaming, Danga 1999, Amelia, Luca Guarneri, and Zach Stevens. Now heading over to this week's new Patreon signups. A massive thank you to Payne GMYT, Kyla Francisco, Jeremy Shea, Gregory A. Maxey, Mauricio Rodriguez, Hannah Reed, Pix, Christian Stewart, Lorinda M, Akio Yuki, Babatanda Mustafa, Philip Bognar, Leather Hosin, Alexi, Zach Yeager, Joshua Rapp, Joe Shah, Silene, Dendave0318, Cora, Maxwell Daxel 2, Michael Perillo, Colin Asher, Killian Burke, Corey Craven, Twig, Malzeno, Max B, Basil 2, Hayden McManus, Mina, Mr. Sophistication, Silissa, Peyton Day, Mr. Fart Stinkworld, Dr. Divine, Nate, Gabe Schnitter, Kaylee, Officer Bojack, Khaled Zero, Gamer Crusader Zero, Matt, Adam Brigante, Sky Guy, Sophie S, Daquan White, Patrick Dubois, Victor P, Runar Vigeland, Thomas Gustafsson, Uwu Ford Master, Torby Thing, Lily Roberts, Ashton Lewis, Smoking Weed Right Now, Harry, Rift, Almighty Boat, Fayan Walea, Sir Sticky Butt, Fabian Hoffman, Wekaz, NBA Simulation League, Alex Bruce, Robert K, Eugene, Chester, Lynn, Unsimpush, Demaya Grant, Jalen Thomas, Augustus Davids, Walter Sandufla, Mario Pratner, Stanley Robert, Dali Atom, El Topo, Philip Brend, Mason, Tash, Mr. Peep, Danger Sloth, Jordan Dodd, Undeniably Zara, The Pearl Winkle Boy, Cash Bussy, Aiden, and X-Jono. So once again, a massive shout out to all of the YouTube members and patrons, and a big thank you to everyone else for watching.